I'm talking to life coach Alice Stapelton. Hi Alice, how are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Alice, today we're talking about the quarter life crisis. What is the quarter life crisis?
Well, it's definitely not a midlife crisis, which people, a lot of people have heard of the midlife crisis, and they think it's the similar thing happening early. And to a degree, it might be, but in many ways, it is completely different. So the definitions out there by, people who have researched into this area, they sort of talk of a very emotional crisis. There's a lot of confusion involved, and you can feel very anxious, and you feel very uncertain about your decisions. You feel that you have a huge amount of options, but you're really not sure what option you want to take. And there's a lot of fear involved about making decisions, about making the wrong decision, and are you going to like whatever decision it is that you make. It's also a period where people sort of struggle to really identify who they are. They're not really sure what they like, what they don't like, and that sort of ties into the uncertainty. And there's a real sort of struggle to feel independent, because of society the way it is at the moment. What tends to happen is that the usual ways that we used to feel independent, like buying a house, a sort of very progressive career, having a family, they're all just completely shifted now. They're all a lot harder to attain than they used to be. So there's a real fight to sort of obtain their independence against a society that seems to be very much against them. Although they have the options, they seem very hard to reach. So you sort of end up in a real state of, just really not knowing which way to go. So that's kind of a summary of what the quarter life crisis feels like and is.
And what age group is generally affected?
Well, it again varies depending on which researcher you talk to. I recently did a bit of research on the quarter life crisis, and my findings were that it can affect anyone from about 18 up to potentially 35. So there's a real variety of ages that you can feel like this. And the reason for that is that within that period of time, a lot of people experience very different things. So for example, a trigger is thought to be when you leave education. So previously you'd think, okay, well, quarter life crisis is going to be, when people perhaps leave university at what, 20, 22, that kind of age. But, I've just turned 30 and I've only just finished my education because of the opportunities about postgraduate courses and masters and PhDs and all that kind of thing. So actually you can be working towards your education for a lot longer than you did previously. And so then you get to 30 and you're experiencing the same thing as somebody who leaves university a lot younger. So that's why the spectrum is so wide, in my opinion.
Explain some of the practical tips, if there are any, that you could teach someone in your coaching session for the quarter life crisis to implement some of the goals that they may have and action their plans.
Okay. Well, the main thing, and a lot of people have heard this term, is to make sure that your goals are SMART. So that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bounded. So what tends to happen is, I might start working with a client and their goal is to completely change career. And that's such a massive goal that, no one's really going to know where to start with that. So my role is to sort of really encourage them to break it down into just tiny, really specific measurable goals, and to give themselves a sort of deadline as to when they're going to achieve that. So they might say, okay, well, my first step is to find out what career it is that I want to do. So in order to do that, my first step might be to do like a sort of profiler questionnaire on the internet or something. And so that might be one tiny little action. And then they could say, right, I'm going to do that within the next week. And then going even further than that, I would say, okay, when are you actually going to do this? So look at your diary, look at what commitments you have, and find a time slot that you can fit this into. So then they kind of committed to, right, Wednesday evening, going to take an hour, I'm going to do this. And then also encouraging them to think about, okay, what's going to get in the way of you doing that? And so they might say, oh, a friend invites me out for a drink or something. And so then you work through, okay, so how are you going to respond to that? What's more important, a drink or career? And they might say, oh, actually, you know, I'll ask my friend if they prefer to go out the next night. And so working on it on a really, really specific level in order to pull together really tiny goals that fit into an action plan that they've committed to and really thought about in a very practical, realistic way.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you so much.
No problem.